Welcome to Gemara for Children. I would like to begin by learning today's 5 new words. Word number 1, ba'e, which means ask or need, depending on the context. Word number 2 is chatzi, which means half. Word number 3, mahu, what is the din? Word number 4, taima, which means taste or reason. And final, word number 5 is mai, which means what or why. In the previous piece of the Gemara, we learned the teaching of Rav Ukva Bar Chama that in the first case of the Reish of our Mishnah, if an owner leaves behind 1 kav of grain in an area of 4 by 4 amos in their threshing floor, being that it requires a lot of effort for the owner to go back and retrieve it, we can assume the owner is going to leave it there and make it hefker, make it ownerless. So if anyone finds that grain, they are allowed to take it. Today we are going to be learning 4 questions of Rabbi Yirmiyah. In order to understand Rabbi Yirmiyah's questions, we have to understand the following rule. Every time a person is instructed to do something which requires effort, the person will always measure and see how much effort do I need to put in, and in return, how much reward will I receive for my efforts. We finished learning in the last piece that the effort that it takes for an owner to go back and retrieve 1 kav of grain in an area that's 4 by 4 amos is too much effort. It's not worth it for the owner for the reward that he's going to receive in return. Today we're going to learn 2 of the 4 questions that Rabbi Yirmiyah is going to ask. And in order to understand them, I would like to give the following example. Let's say one day your teacher walks into class and he says, listen everyone, anyone that's going to get a 85%, the grade of 85 on their upcoming test, is going to receive as a reward 1 piece of chocolate. So certain students might say, it's not worth it for me to put in all this effort just to receive 1 piece of chocolate. Let's compare this case to the owner having to go back to retrieve 1 kav in 4 by 4 amos. It's not worth it for him to put in the effort to receive that reward. So asks Rabbi Yirmiyah the following 2 questions. What were to happen if, let's say, one day the teacher walks in and he says, guys, listen here. Any student that gets a passing grade, a 65% on their upcoming test, is going to get 1 chocolate chip. So what do we do? What do you how do you think the students are going to react? Are they going to say, well, for me to get a 65, it takes way less effort than for me to get an 85. So if I only need to get a 65, it's worth it for me to put in that effort. Or do you think the students are going to say, 1 second, yeah, it's easy for me to get a 65, but I'm only getting 1 chocolate chip that's even less than 1 piece of chocolate. That's not worth it for me. I'm for sure not going to put in the effort for this test. So what's going to happen in such a scenario? Or let me ask you guys in the reverse. What were to happen if the teacher were to walk in and say, guys, anyone that's going to get a perfect 100 score on the next test is going to receive an entire bar of chocolate? So do we say, well, oh my gosh, if 85 takes a lot of effort, for me to get a 100, that's going to take way more effort for me to do that. There's no way I'm going to put in the effort. Or do we look at the reward and say, wait a second, if for an 85 I was only going to get 1 piece of chocolate, then fine, it wasn't worth it for me. But if I'm going to get an entire bar, the reward is so much better, then for sure I'm going to do it. So in each one of these 2 cases, by the cases of the 65 or the case of the 100, there's logic to say either way. So asks Rabbi Yirmiyah in our Gemara the following 2 questions. Question number 1, what were to happen if an owner were to leave a half a kav of grain in an area that's 2 by 2 amos? So do we say that a half a kav is a lot less effort? For me to get a half a kav is half of the effort than it were for me to get one kav. So then maybe the owner would go back and receive it. Or do we say, well, yeah, the effort is less, but the reward is also much less. He's only going to be getting a half a kav in reward. So maybe it's not worth it for him to put in the effort, even though it's only half the amount, because he's only going to be getting half the reward. And the same thing in the reverse. Asks Rabbi Yirmiyah question number 2, what were to happen if a person were to leave 2 kav of grain in an area that's 8 by 8 amos? So do we say that 2 kav, imagine if 1 kav took a lot of effort, then for sure 2 kav it's going to take a lot of effort. For sure the owner is not going to go back and retrieve it. Or maybe we don't look at the effort, we look at the reward, and we say, well, for the reward of 1 kav, it wasn't worth it. But if the owner is now going to receive an entire 2 kav, then maybe he would put in the effort to receive it. These are the first 2 of the 4 questions that Rabbi Yirmiyah asks in our Gemara.